Andy. Welcome everyone, and to our webinar today. My name is Tim Gondek, and I'm today's host with Energy Safety Canada. Today we're going to be talking about mental health resilience during COVID-19 and beyond. We have some assistance today for my help, which I may need shortly with some technical challenges I'm having, is Andy Davis and Adria Branton from Energy Safety Canada. Just a few things that we'd like to cover off before we introduce Pat further, and today's webinar is just a couple items around. Oh, Andy, can you forward my or advance my slide? Oh, there we go. Okay, today we will be using the chat function of Zoom. So if you see it on your screen, if you have it on the top of your screen using the web browser, you can do it there. Or if you're using a mobile device, you can also click the three buttons at the bottom of the page and it will update or open another chat screen. I will be monitoring the chats during the day and we'll have a question and answer at the end of Pat's presentation. As well, we're going to just make sure that the technology on your end is working well. So what we're going to do is just do a quick test of your system. And if you, again, click on the participant link at the bottom, what you'll find is a screen that gives you a few things that you can do. For now, why don't we just test, and Andy will help me out here, to make sure that everybody can hear the presentation. If you can you please click yes? If you're having difficulties, what we'll end up doing is have someone connect with you on the back end. Andy, can you provide the responses?
Yeah, everybody's looking good, Tim. A lot of yeses, no nos, so we can continue.
Excellent. And just a reminder to everybody to please shut off your video and your audio during the session. And now it's my pleasure to be introducing Pat Ferris. Pat has been a previous presenter at the Petroleum Safety Conference and has provided mental health, trauma, and safety services to our industry over 30 years, as well as many other industries. She has a master's degree in clinical social work and doctoral degree in industrial organizational psychology. I've had an opportunity to discuss this topic with Pat over the last couple weeks, and quite excited with the information that she has to share with you, considering the challenges that we're having not only with the COVID-19, but within our oil and gas industry, as well as up in Fort McMurray with some floods that we had in the past 2 weeks that have been a bit challenging for ourselves. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Pat, but Andy, again, I'm having difficulty with my mouse. Can you, let me try again here. Can you give Pat remote control? Always way, isn't Pat?
Well, here we are, the troubles of being a remote worker.
Actually, Pat, you should be able to just click and take control.
Oh,
there.
Here we go. Okay. There we go.
There we go. There we have it. So
thank you, Pat.
One more time. Ah! It always amazes me when this stuff works. So, whew, now my stress is over. What a time we're in. You know, never thought I'd be living through this. Never thought I'd be living through a lot of the stuff that we've all been through that are in the oil and gas industry over the last 5 or 10 years. So I just want to say what a pleasure it is to speak with everyone today. And please, my heart just goes out to everyone in the Fort McMurray area and surrounding area. I just, when I turned the TV on and saw the flood going on, I was like, wow. Oil and gas challenges, the fire, COVID, and now the flood. So all I can say is that after all of this is over and done, you guys are going to be so amazingly resilient and so amazingly strong, and your community is going to just be one of the most powerful in Canada. I saw a lot of people through, obviously the oil and gas issues, but through the Fort McMurray fires. And one of the things that impressed me as time went on and we did our work together, how strong the people were, how much community developed out of that as they went back and dealt with and rebuilt community from there. So here we are in what we're going to call another AFCO. Another really fun growth opportunity. I'm hoping what I will share with you will give you some ideas on how you keep your wits, your sanity, and maybe out of all of this get some growth. For those of you who are listening in to figure out how to deal with your staff, your workers, your family, I'm going to ask you to think about, when I speak about things, how you might apply this to remote workers, to essential workers, to yourself and to your family. I'll share some of my stuff with you and we'll get through this together. So these are the things I want to talk about today. I really want to talk about what resilience is and what it isn't. Because resilience isn't about always things going well and being happy. I want to talk about how we create that resilience through our thoughts, behaviors, and managing our emotions. I really want to talk also about how we create community through this. We are a social species, and all the research on anything that is traumatic, including war, surviving the most horrible events possible in the world, is that the support that we get makes the biggest difference. And indeed, the studies of survivors of war and combat, the strongest correlation between recovering and growing versus developing trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder is the amount of support that people get simply from each other, not even people like myself, just from each other. Then we're going to talk a bit about, how to apply what I've talked about to essential service workers and teams, how to support remote workers, and to talk about how to know if you, or I, or any of the people that you're working with may need some deeper kind of help. So this is from an employment study that came out. Oh, yeah, I always do that. I may need some help. Can anybody? Probably not. Turn back the, how do we turn back time? There we are. Look at me learning. There we go. Okay, I got to say, this is my first webinar that I'm doing like this, and so I'm in my own COVID-19 learning curve. But I expect some of this resonates with you, is that this is about a 2-week-old study, is that most people who are going through the COVID-19 are finding it hard. And when we find things hard, we have all these things. Our muscles tense up because we worry, the stress response takes over and we don't eat so well. We may drink more or use more drugs. We lose sleep, we get unhappy, we feel isolated, and we worry about things. So if this is resonating with you, you're not alone. So this is hard. It's hard because we've lost a lot of things. We've lost freedoms, our vision of the future. We've had to cope. Now, coping is good, But coping takes energy. I've often thought, why am I so tired at the end of the day? I'm seeing less people. You know, I'm at home. I'm relatively okay, but I'm learning new things. I'm coping with technology like this. I'm grieving the loss of my freedoms, and I'm so missing my people. I miss those brief contacts at the office. I miss my clients. I miss being out. And it challenges faith, our belief in whatever higher power we have and their faith in us. So there's a link to the study there. So many people ask me when I do presentations, would you please give me tools to deal with this? So I've taken that message and I've given you a good tool here. So you're welcome to print it out and post it wherever you want, laying your head there on a firm surface. So just trying to incorporate a bit of humor here, but many people tell me it works just fine. So what resilience is not, okay? Resilience doesn't mean that you won't ever feel pain, that you won't experience difficulty or distress. Resilience is a process. It's about learning and growing, and it's about having the skills to manage our minds, building the neural networks in our mind through a process of pain, through a process of learning that helps us do the thoughts, behaviors, and actions that help move us through, problem solve, and cope. So it's not a personality trait. It's something that everybody can learn. But for most of us, it actually takes some focus on doing this, and it takes some learning. And we make mistakes along the way and are not imperfect. But it is like building a muscle. Okay, so resilience is a process of adapting. And adapting means that we build new neural networks, new connections in our brain in the face of adversity, trauma, or threats. If we don't have some challenges in our lives, we can't build new neural nets and we don't grow. And so adversity is important in learning and growing, although we often hope not to have the adversity that's been presented to most of you. But what I have found in my work with people is that almost everyone has a mental reservoir of strength that you're able to call on when you need it, that will carry you through without falling apart. Okay, there's a wonderful book written and it's called Survival. A very hard book to read because the researcher looked at people who'd survived the most horrible things, watching friends eaten by sharks. I don't know, remembering the man who got his leg caught in a bear trap and had to cut his own leg off in the woods. So it looked at how do people surviving that. And so a lot of the thoughts that I'm going to present to you are thoughts that those people shared with the researcher. And looking at other research dating back to the Second World War, which is where the study of resilience started. So we know now that resilience involves behaving in ways that are positive and moving you through, getting out of stinking thinking and into more positive thinking, and taking actions that move you through rather than keep you stuck in the cauldron of poison. And so in doing that, there's 4 core elements that I'm going to talk about. Connection, as I said, we're a social species. Without connection, we wither. About keeping well, about keeping your thinking healthy, and about either creating, finding, or remembering the meaning that you've created out of your life. So I'm going to ask you to think about how you might apply these tools to remote workers, to essential workers. The bang your head here one, I don't know, you might want to say you can post that in various places around the office. But you might want to post Dr. Dog up here and see how many people can complete Dr. Dog's recommendations. How in an ambulance, run around in circles with a sock in your mouth. I don't know if that's COVID good or not. Maybe eating a messy meal. I'm joking here, but one of the things we need through all of this is humor. So how do we build resilience? One of the first thing is that people need to feel that they are not alone. And one of the things that I'm hearing is so many messages that come across every bank, every insurance, is talking about you're not alone in this. But how do we really help people feel that they are not alone? So in an essential work team, if you have a huddle every morning, which I hope you do, you may ask people, how are you feeling today? Now, people are probably not automatically going to say, I feel this or that, until you as a leader or someone there says, you know, today I'm feeling irritable. I've kind of had it up to here with things, you know, want to get in a better mood. But I'm, you know, today I'm struggling. Then it makes it okay for people to share their own feelings. Okay, you may ask, what are your worries? You also may ask, what have you learned? What are we discovering? You know, what I'm learning is that I have a good network of people I can call. What I'm learning is, even though I am an old dog, I can learn new tricks. Look at me going on my first webinar on Zoom. So taking care of your body, mindfulness and managing stinking thinking, and looking for opportunities for self-discovery is how you and others start to build that core of resilience. I've put a picture of geese up. This is really profound for me, if we have the sense of a goose. What I've learned about geese is that they fly in the V formation because it's efficient. You know, if you watch a flock of geese, you'll see that they take turns leading. And they take turns leading, so no one person gets tired out. So my first question is, how can everyone take turns leading with your work groups, with your family, with your community? How do you take turns leading through these times? How do you let others lead when they step up and want to lead? How do you ask people to lead and share? Okay? This is what keeps everyone from tiring out. Geese also honk from behind. And apparently, according to the researchers, they do this for encouragement of those in the lead and those flying. So how do you honk from behind? Okay. How do you give support to each other? Emails, telephone calls, texts, positive things in a meeting, are all honking from behind. One of the things that I just love learning about the geese is that if a goose is wounded, if it's shot or it's wounded or sick and needs to leave the flock and go down, a member of the flock will fly down and be with it until it can return to the flock or die. So the message in this is, some of your community at work, your community will be more wounded than others. They've had more things on their plates, more situations, and will need your help. And how do we make this okay to be helped, to ask for help, to give help? I remember in my military training, in my officer training, I was in Valcartier, Quebec, and we got the whole combat training. At the end of the March, well, end of March, at the end of a month out in the field in a trench in war games after no food, we marched down a mountain at night, and I think it was about a 20-mile march with 80 pounds on your back. And I know at one point they would give us breaks, and I fell in a mud puddle face down, and I could not get up. And all of a sudden I felt these arms on either side of me lifting me up, and they were my squad mates, and they carried me for a period of time till my energy came back. And then I could march again. And then at another break, other people fell, and I remember helping them up. And I remember at the end of the march, my whole squad made it, and we could see in the distance the vision of the future, which was the mess and pancakes, and then the mess over there for our little beer gathering later at night. And we certainly ran towards that. So just some examples of how you make this real. So please think about taking your turn as lead, honking from behind, being helped, offering help. And so I want you to have a look at this slide. This is something that might be helpful to post, or even talk about at work or in your community, post things. Who can help with kids? Who's good at sending out appreciation? Who can we rely on at work to help if we need them? Often administrators, some of the reception people are just so amazing at organizing and helping people. Who's there to talk to? Your leaders, your supervisors, employee assistance program people. Are there some people at work that are good at fun, appropriate fun? Yeah. Who's good at jokes? Who's good at lightening things up? And who's our emergency contact people? In communities, who can come out, who can help, who can clean, who can care for someone, who can we contact if we feel that things at work are going sideways and we need some help. And again, these tools that I'm giving you here are hopefully tools that you can take back to your families, community, and workplace. So resilience covers the whole human being. And as a human being, we're a bunch of neural connections. We're a bunch of muscular connections that need to be fueled and fed. And we're also a group of energy. And the energy needs to be managed. And so here are some ideas on how we do that. Well, I'm often the person in the dog park who's talking to the dogs. About a month ago, I was out snowshoeing with some friends and I found some pussy willows and felt compelled to recite a poem to them. And the friends were coming up and saying, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm talking to the pussy willows. I talk to my cats, I talk to the dogs, I go to the dog park, socially appropriately distanced, and talk to the dogs and smile at them. So I want you to have a look at this and commit to taking one thing out of this that you're going to do for self-care. Okay, so ordering online is good, but not overly. Drinking cocoa. There's a lot of books out that people are drawing in. I'm hearing from people that they're doing puzzles and they're sending me pictures of these incredibly different snow, a puzzle of snow. Oh my gosh, how do you do that? And if you don't get it done, forgive yourself and resolve to do it the next day. One of the most helpful self-care strategies that we can practice and should practice on a daily basis is what we call box breathing. And yes, I'm going to make you go through a breathing exercise with me so you experience this. I have found at times in meetings when people are getting anxious, when things are heating up, we're worried or whatever, I've just said, let's just ground ourselves for a moment. So I've asked people to close their eyes, put their feet in the ground, and I'm going to ask you to do that. And I'm going to take you through the box breathing. We're going to do 3 rounds of this, which will take less than 30 seconds. So please bear with me. So we're going to breathe in to a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, out for a count of 4, and hold again, because that's our natural sequence of breathing. Okay, so here we go. Get ready. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, whew, and hold again. Now, If you can practice that kind of breathing 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you will have a tremendous capacity to stop anxiety, to stop worry, and to ground yourself when you need to ground yourself. Okay, I feel better. So let's start with taking care of your mind. It's interesting to note that our minds are actually programmed to hold on to a negative more than they are a positive. Evolutionary psychologists explain this by saying we had to be aware of danger around us. And our brain is acutely wired with our stress system to be hypervigilant, to look for and react to stressors and dangers that our mind perceives. And so it's like our mind looks for something negative and then holds on to it like Velcro. So at the end of the day, we can have all these Velcro balls stuck to us and feel really weighed down by them. The challenge with our minds is to keep the positives, but our brain almost lets positives go. So it's like we have Teflon for positives and they slide off. And so in times like now, when you're dealing with layers and layers and layers of adversity, challenges, and traumas, it can be easy to be weighed down with Velcro, and for the pieces, the small little joys of good that comes to mind, slip away. So if you want a good question to start some discussion with your groups, you might ask, what is the mind? That we could discuss that for a very, very long time, but that makes an interesting point for a meeting and leads on to the discussion about what negatives do we hold on to and what positives are we forgetting about. So it's about keeping things in perspective, realistic thinking. Okay, so what the reality of this time is that there is a lot of stuff going on, and it truly is a hard time. And we're going to have some worry thoughts about things, but how do we keep away from stinking thinking? Okay, I'm going to talk about what that is in a bit. And how do we accept the things that, like the serenity prayer. Where is it? I've got it here on my desk. I just want to read it to you. Is God grant me, or higher power grant me, the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, which is the really, really difficult part. And this is where wise people, where you've gained learning from resilience, can be so incredible in a family, a work group, and a community. Okay, so learning that we need to focus on circumstances that we can alter, accepting that we're not always going to have the answer, and accepting that we and others will be in pain from time to time as we move through the adversity, the challenge of these times. But balancing that off is, how do we maintain hope? How do we maintain a hopeful outlook? We do that by visualizing what we want. We're seeing a future beyond this, and being flexible emotionally, being aware of what we're feeling and sitting with it. When we experience difficult emotions, most people want to stuff them all down. And if we keep stuffing everything down, eventually what happens is that beach ball of stuff gets so big that we can't stuff it down, and it will fly up in our face. So we really, really need to be aware of what we're feeling, and we really, really need to find ways to deal with that. And if we're struggling with that, we need to be able to ask for some help. So I have used this personal power grid. I post it around my office and have it in my life. It's another tool that you can share with people. You can post it at work, you can post it online. You can ask people to think about it, and I'm just going to work it through. And I want each of you to think about how you help your team or your community and yourself look at where you want to be and how you stay there. Okay? So across the top, we see you can control something or you can't control something. You can decide to take an action, or you can decide not to take an action. So if there is something that you can control, you want to take some action on it. So that's what we call active coping strategy. We either seek to influence people or influence the situation that's within our reach to do. So acting directly and sometimes with support. So what can we control about the situation now? Give you a moment to think about that. We can't really control the government. We've discovered we don't control Mother Nature. We can influence some people by asking for what we want and giving suggestions. But what we really can control is how we react and what we do around that. So what do? I wash my hands frequently. I wash my clothes. I look at scientific research around COVID. I look at who I can help and do I want to help and is it safe to help? We can develop as organizations defensible COVID-19 return to work plans. So we can fill that one in with a fair bit that we can control. You know, you're trained in looking at hazards, hazard mitigation, and assessing whether the mitigation is helping. Well, what can't we control? Well, we can't control the virus, it's here. We can't control the weather, it did what it did. We can sometimes not control the companies and the decisions they make. And if we try and control the things that we can't, we end up doing that bang your head here thing, butting our heads on a brick wall until we get a big red spot here and it hurts. Okay? So rather than that, where we want to be is in letting go. Is accepting there are some things that we just simply have control. Now, when I say acceptance, it doesn't mean that you accept that the situation is good. It means you accept that all you can do is all you can do. And if you do all you can do, that's all you can do, okay? It's about finding ways to sublimate pain, to make your life as good as possible and focus on the other piece, the above piece, what can I control? And the last one is giving up. If you don't take action on some things that you could control, then you feel helpless and hopeless, and you get in that depressed place where you feel hopeless. And so when you hear people around you expressing, there's nothing I can do, I feel hopeless, that indicates they need some help, they need some support, but they also need some gentle refocus on, here's some things that we can do. Here's some things that I can help you with. Here's some things you can help me with. Here's some things that we can do together, that we can take some control of this, okay? So, you know, the father of resilience is Viktor Frankl. And he was a Jewish man who was interred in 4 death camps. He actually watched his whole family die in the death, you know, spouse, parents, children in the death camps, and he survived. And he said that people who developed resilience and survived the camps did several things. And I'm just going to move on from this, is that they had an attitude of gratitude. And I think we often shrug this off as something that's not going to make a difference or that we don't want to do or feel silly. But the research is really, really clear on this. And this is something maybe for the morning huddle, whether the huddle is virtual, email, in person like we're doing, or whether it's with an essential team socially distanced, as we need to talk about what's good and what we're grateful for, and what is the joy and the good in the moment. Because what Viktor Frankl did is, after he studied resilience and he studied the people that survived the death camps, and he found some differences in them, what he said was that they were able to see a vision of the future. And his was to be a psychologist that studied this, that they took joy in small things, hearing a bird sing. So I often look out my window and listen to these 2 chatty birds that drive me nuts in the morning, and imagine them having an argument, and it brings me great joy. And it means that they did what they could in the moment. So I want you to think about how you bring this attitude of gratitude to yourself, because it's contagious, how you make the gentle reminders in your teams and to people, but how you be really careful with your own comparisons. Just do not compare yourself to others, whether you're really struggling or doing really phenomenal. I'm probably in the middle. When I hear people say, oh, it's great, no problems, no worries, oh, that kind of triggers me a bit. But when I hear people that have nothing going, I think I want to help. And so if you don't compare wherever you are, understand where you're at, ask for the help you need, give the help that's required. Keeping a gratitude journal, we know is very helpful. But wouldn't that be a cool thing to do as a team? To actually start an online journal that people could go look at, could post in, that maybe in addition to starting a meeting off with a safety moment, we also include an attitude of gratitude moment. What are we grateful for today and in this moment? So this goes on to one of the other pillars of the foundation. I'm just checking my time here to see how we're doing. I think we're doing just fine. Yeah. So faith, cultural traditions, helping other, and self-discovery are all components of purpose. I have a faith in a higher power, and I love various cultural traditions. I love the gongs of Buddhism. I love the drums of Aboriginal drums. I have one in my house, and I find in the morning what I do is I just drum a bit, because the resonance of it resonates with me and gets me into a grounded state. So I think in our communities and in our lives, we often forget about purpose, about faith. And when I talk about faith, I don't talk about religion especially, but I talk about a faith in something higher than yourself. And so I just want to share what Viktor Frankl talked about faith. Just as a small fire is extinguished by the storm, whereas a large fire is enhanced by it, likewise, a weak faith is weakened by predicament and catastrophes, whereas a strong faith is strengthened by them. And so faith can be a wide range of things, but it is something that we really, really need to be connecting with. So bringing this down to the community level, how do you lead and feed a community? Because you are part of layers of communities. You're part of your family community, you're part of a friendship community, you're part of a work community, and you're part of a larger community. And in doing this, all of the things that are up here on this slide, how do we resonate, remind, how do we educate, how do we support and follow, are all actions that we can take that will feed your community. So one of the most important things to do right now is to create time in this time of uncertainty. And we do that by reminding people of the strength and resilience that exists within them. And as I say, in the Fort McMurray area, there is incredible strength, resilience, and community that is there. It feels maybe battered, but it's there. The vision of the future as a stronger community of moving through this and being real. We can't build on lies and platitudes and unrealistic positive things. So we need to be real. This is hard. It has challenged us. There are people in need. And there is evidence that we are coping. Our country's beating this. Other countries are beating this. We've got through a lot of things together. In Calgary, we got through the flood. We got through the cancellation of not cancellation, but we got Stampede through it. So message, talk, share, provide reassurance. We will move through this. And if this is our generation's challenge, it is better than what a lot of generations have gone through. I think of my grandparents and the wars and the other pandemics, and I'm truly grateful for all the ways we have of connecting now and creating that community. So coming down to the end is some ideas. I really want to talk about some ideas in supporting essential workers. I'm working with a lot of people virtually who are essential workers. And what I'm hearing more than anything is fear. Fear about catching COVID, fear about giving it to their families, fear about as we return, how much more exposure there's going to be. I heard a lawyer talk about, well, you don't have to go back to work if you don't feel safe. And some of that's not quite true, is that if companies can build a defensible safety plan around COVID, I think we can work safe and healthy. So that means that those of you who are tasked with that are going to need to be very well informed, and you're going to need to share information frequently and be sure it's evidence-based information, fact sheets, frequent information that is updated regularly, that is real, okay? You need to make it okay for people to express concerns, because if they can't express concerns, how do you know what a hazard might be, and how do you talk about mitigating that? You need to be able to reassure, emphasize that Canada, the company, yourself, have good measures in place and will take all the measures recommended and beyond to keep people safe. We also need to acknowledge that these are not normal times. And so people are going to need more support for healthy practices at work. So maybe you build a relaxation box breathing exercise in. Maybe you take some time and listen to music. Supply links of cats riding Zumbas, taking breaks together and just drinking a coffee or tea, and acknowledging, these are unusual times, and look at us go. Look at us how we're getting through this. And support for remote work. It's interesting, one of the most important things that I'm finding in remote work is helping people create a safe and respectful workspace. I'm hearing of performance appraisals done being over the phone, where people are misunderstanding words and communications and becoming very distressed. Helping people create work routines and spaces at home. I really struggled with that at first. And, I think it was about the fourth week, I just woke up and I started crying. And I'm like, what is this about? I was just overwhelmed with everything that I had to do. So sharing humor, making sure it's appropriate, having some laughter, maybe sharing appropriate links. I have a virtual team of other psychologists and therapists that meet on Fridays, and we talk about how we're dealing with things, what our challenges are, and then we play an online game together, and we've had some real fun with those. It's really important, though, to be available for individual support, not just by email, but by phone or by a face-to-face meeting. If it's a distressing issue, if you can do it by face-to-face, that is the most important way to provide support. And giving people handouts, just again, the fact sheets and how we cope, and listening to your remote workers. It's those huddles, those meetings, the gratitudes, the worries, getting to understand what each person needs, what space each person is in. And finally, as we wrap this part up, to know when you or someone else needs some help, either in terms of counseling, coaching, or a consultation. For counseling, many people come for a growth opportunity, and that's always wonderful. But that you or someone else needs some help when you see people being chronically fatigued, exhausted, expressing worry most of the time. When people say that they feel that their coping resources are just depleted and they can't find them, If people are saying sleep is chronically poor, we all have nights where we're not going to sleep. But if we're not sleeping well, what happens in the brain is that the dishwasher effect doesn't happen. If we don't sleep well, the spinal fluid doesn't come up, clean out all the debris of the day, and flush it away. And so the garbage collects up and we can't think, we can't make good decisions, so we are not safe, okay? We're not physically healthy and we're not safe. And so sleep is one of the primary concerns you need to look out for. We know through that that substance abuse is increasing. Maybe we're all doing it at times, but a substantial increase is a cause for worry. If you see conflict present, or if conflict was present between people or within groups, before this all started, this is something you really need to be on top of. I'm working with mediators and investigators right now, and they are saying that conflict resolution and investigations can actually still take place in a reasonable way. So following your respect in the workplace policies, following any support you would give for conflict resolution is incredibly important right now and can be done. It's also great to get counseling, coaching, or a consultation with someone like me. Hey, I've got this situation going and I'm not so sure what I might want to do about it. Is get that other brain to help you work it through. Or if you just want growth as a leader or someone in the group. So I've talked about a lot. I am at the end of my stuff, and we'll hand this back to Tim for ideas. But I do just want to say, in the book that I talked about, I just want to summarize this all up, Surviving Survival. They talked about 5 points, and I want to leave you with them. One is sublimation, doing something to channel your energy and anxiety. Second is altruism, helping others. The third is suppression, is just distract yourself from time to time. The next is anticipation. See the future clearly and prepare for it. I'm learning a ton about this and I see a good future in doing webinars. And please find some humor, especially about yourself. It's one of the most healing things you can do. So thank you. It's been a privilege to talk to you. I think we'll move on to questions now.
Great, thanks very much, Pat. And if we could go to the chat screen, we do have a few minutes for questions. And Andy, I don't know if we've received any as of yet.
Yes, Tim, we do have a question here so far. From Sarah, Pat, what online games do you play in virtual meetings? Our team is doing a virtual social weekly and looking for some ideas.
Oh, good. I got Taylor, the administrator, usually does that. I'm just going to look. I have it on my phone. What's it called? Where is it? It might be something I have to anybody to give to you, because I'm not finding it very quickly. But what we do is we all log in, and it's a game of I'll keep talking and it'll come to me. It's a game where it's almost like the old Trivial Pursuit. So we all log in and we get a question, and it keeps tracks of scores and what people said, and we can still see ourselves up on Zoom. So we do it through Zoom, but we all download the information on our computers, and we can play it from there. So if there's other questions, let's go on with them, and I'm just going to keep going through my phone to find that. But we've had, don't do the math ones. We all went on that one. Geography. Oh, here we are. Kahoot. Okay, and KAHOT. That's been the primary one we've used, and it's a free download.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Pat. Another question here from Mike. Oftentimes in team settings, people simply will not speak up or share. Any other ideas on what leaders can do to get people to talk?
Well, the biggest thing that a leader can do to get people to talk is to be real themselves, to say, you know, I've struggled with this or that. it's pulled me down, or I remember a time when I wasn't doing so well, and here's some of the things that I did about that. Um, what are your thoughts when people struggle with something like that? So get them talking maybe in the third person to say, if you knew of someone that was struggling with this, that, or whatever you might think the issue is, let's brainstorm together some ideas that might work. Put some ideas up on a slide, say, hey, I was talking with some people, or I heard a presentation, taking things from this presentation and saying, I heard this speaker and this is what she said she's hearing from remote workers, let's say. She's hearing a lot of fear and the need for a plan. What's your thoughts on that? And as you make it real, as you can be real, and that's the critical piece, that you be real. Don't try and be I'm the big strong leader, because then nobody's going to want to appear weak in front of you. So single biggest thing there. Answer your question. Did that get to what you'd hoped for?
Yes, thank you. Moving on, another question from Michelle. You mentioned seeing a vision of the future as supporting resilience. What are your thoughts about COVID-19 as a transformational experience that will change the way we work and how we communicate in positive ways?
I thank you. It's probably something I should have talked about. So thank you, Michelle, for that question. We've talked about resilience, a storm that makes the crop stronger. My vision immediately as I started to learn these platforms is, oh, wow, this is going to transform work for people. I hope work and life in a significant way. One, that we appreciate and understand the connections that we need and that we foster them. Two, is that we don't have to drive everywhere. We can have really productive meetings as we learn this through Zoom. So I see a blend of things coming, that people may work from home a little more, come into the office to have in-person meetings, that we share and learn, and that we can connect quite truly in this format. In the counseling profession, I love doing face-to-face work, and it's always my preferred way, but I'm finding that Zoom, FaceTime, even phone, is working well. And so that's going to help people who can't make it in for appointments. It's going to help the world of work is that, you don't have to leave work, come here and then go home. So I see blending, and I hope what it brings for us is a more grounded way of being, that we can get by with less. We can grow our own vegetables. We don't have to drive everywhere. We don't have to buy so many clothes. That we take joy in smaller things, that we get grounded in that. And that when we can get back to work and see our peeps, oh boy, we treasure that. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Pat. We have one closing question that I can answer. Several people have inquired asking if a recording of this presentation will be available, and we will have that available on the Energy Safety Canada website in a few days under the heading of Webinar on Demand. And that is all the time we have for questions. And now, just to close out, I will turn the presentation back over to Tim.
Great, thanks, Andy, and I really appreciate your help in the background. And Pat, I really want to thank you, and on behalf of Energy Safety Canada and the people that have participated, in the future ones that will watch this on our website, for your sharing of knowledge and your experiences, as well as some tools for us and to use personally as well as our teams, that we can manage some of the challenges that we're facing. I know the box breathing definitely helped me today with the technology challenges we've had today. So thank you for that coping tool that I'll use in the future. One thing that we would like to, in the closing aspects of the meeting, is just to remind people that we have upcoming webinars that you can register at Energy Safety Canada, and going to our website, click on events, and the few that we have coming up: Building Mental Health and Emergency Management and Business Continuity Programs with Liz Horvath. May 21st, we have Cargo Securement, National Safety Code Standard 10 with Doreen McAllister. May 21st, Workplace Exposures with Robert Waterhouse, and Robert again on May 26th for Fit for Duty, Don't Be a Hazard. As well, just there are, if you do belong to CORE, and a CORE auditor, there are additional CORE and auditing webinars that are also posted on our events. Thanks, Andy, for reminding, I missed that at the beginning, reminding people that this will be, this has been recorded and will be posted on our website. As well as we will be sending out a link to those who are registered, that registered with us to provide some feedback to us on a survey on SurveyMonkey. If you did not register directly with us and you were sent the link separately, you still can fill out the survey at SurveyMonkey and type in ESC webinar mental health to obtain, for us to get that feedback, which we very much appreciate. Our organization is also learning the value of technology, and these webinars have been very not only beneficial, I believe, to our stakeholders and our industry, but also to ourselves in learning new skills and techniques that help us translate and communicate out to the world. So thanks again, everyone. And with that, I will leave up this last slide so if you want to capture that survey link, and have a wonderful day. And thanks again, Pat.
Thanks, it's been a privilege.